Peter Parker is still a kid who misses his mentor and wants more than anything to be normal. He's grieving Tony Stark, who saved the world and left Peter something he isn't ready for: fame, responsibility, and a pair of high-tech glasses called Edith. Peter's summer plan is simple: say yes to a school trip to Europe, try to tell MJ how he feels without sounding like a, well, awkward teenager, and let the world's problems be someone else's. Of course, that doesn't last long. Peter boards the plane with his class, flustered and hopeful. There's Ned, his best friend and comic relief, who's thrilled about potential spy stuff. MJ, who's quietly compelling and completely perplexing to Peter. Flash, still a jerk but oddly less important, and classmates who mostly exist to be background tourists as chaos follows. Early on, Peter tries to put his superhero life on hold. No webs, no suits, just sun and gelato. He even tries to tell MJ how he feels in a half-honest, half-stumbling way. She politely deflects, which stings, and you can see Peter folding inward, choosing dull comfort over drama. But Nick Fury has other plans. Fury shows up in Europe like a shadow that won't take a hint. He and Maria Hill bring Peter into a mission. Elemental creatures, massive beings of water, earth, fire, and air are attacking places in Europe. Fury says Peter is needed because of his connection to Tony, and because he's the closest thing to a guy we know who can handle this. It's a messy, confusing recruitment, and Peter tries to be heroic, but still needs to be a teen. Fury's approach, part brusque, part paternal, nudges Peter into the spotlight even as he resists. Enter Quentin Beck, a charismatic and damaged new hero calling himself Mysterio. He's introduced as an Avenger from another dimension who used to fight the elementals with a team of heroes. Beck's presentation is cinematic, larger than life, theatrical, and soothingly confident in ways Peter admires. He's also exactly the kind of grown-up mentor Peter wishes he had: calm, world-weary, skilled. Quentin shows up during an attack in Prague and seems to save the day, solidifying public trust. He's got stories about alternate realities, lost teammates, and sacrifice. Peter, hungry for guidance, but wary of pretending to be someone he isn't, looks to Quentin with a mix of admiration and skepticism. That's a useful tension, because Quentin's charm is a performance, and Peter is more honest than anyone gives him credit for. The team follows trails of destruction: Prague, Venice, London, and Peter gradually learns the elementals are more bizarre than he imagined. The first big encounter is messy. Peter tries to be brave and ends up taking reckless swings at danger, which almost costs lives. He begins making mistakes, like showing off to impress Quentin and trying to play hero more than be one. Quentin is supportive, but also subtly manipulative, flattering Peter and pushing him toward big decisions. Meanwhile, Peter's relationship with MJ builds in quiet beats. She's blunt, dry, and surprisingly into the weird, and when Peter finally admits his feelings, it's awkward and lovely. They share a tender moment in Venice after a chaotic water-based encounter, and for a beat, it feels like Peter might get the normal life he wants. Backstage, there's a corporate subplot. Quentin Beck and his team are not who they say they are. He's actually a former Stark Industries employee, brilliant with visual effects, drones, and illusions, but also bitter and obsessed with being recognized as a hero.
Beck's plan is brilliant in a cold, cinematic way. He uses drones and holograms to stage catastrophic elemental attacks and then positions himself as the only hero capable of stopping them, turning the world into a stage where he plays savior. It's a revenge fantasy against Tony Stark and the system that overlooked him. That's the kind of villain you love to hate. He doesn't want to destroy the world so much as rewrite the script so everyone applauds him. He recruits a crew of actors to sell his backstory and uses incendiary theatrics to manipulate public opinion. Peter, always impulsive, actually helps early on. He's naive and idealistic enough to believe Beck at first, and Beck plays that angle expertly. There's a pivotal scene where Beck shows Peter fake footage of an alternate Earth disaster and commiserates about losing teammates. Peter, trying to do the right thing by Tony's legacy, defers to Beck and even helps in small ways. But there's a turning point when Peter discovers inconsistencies, staged cameras, planted evidence, and a hand that doesn't fit the heroic glove. Peter's detective instincts, kind of his secret superpower, start to kick in. He realizes something is off when Beck's otherworldly explanations don't hold up under scrutiny. Instead of being the adult he needs, Beck wants Peter to be reckless so that buckets of praise fall into his lap. The movie smartly weaves in Peter's growth. He's trying to be more than a kid, but not acting like he's earned being an Avenger. He performs a public stunt to boost his image, inspired by Beck's swagger, and the public loves it. That moment is intoxicating for Peter. Cheers, attention, the idea of stepping out of Tony's shadow. But then the consequences come. The stunt spirals when Beck's illusions become lethal. His staged elementals are not harmless special effects, but weapons, and lives are truly at risk. Peter's loyalty to the image of heroism is challenged by the mess real heroism creates. People die, infrastructure collapses, and the weight of those choices crushes him.
The midpoint explodes into action when Beck's true intentions are revealed. He engineers a catastrophic event, big, destructive, movie-like, and Peter has to step up in a way that isn't cute or triumphant. He goes all in, sacrificing safety and his own comfort to save civilians. The battle sequences are inventive, illusions, drones, and massive set pieces that test Peter's agility and his moral compass. He learns to think like a protector, to keep people safe even when it hurts. During this chaos, Beck's tech takes a sinister turn. He begins to try to manipulate authorities and control narratives. He uses Edith as a linchpin. Peter, unsure whether to trust Tony's legacy with someone like Beck, had already given Quentin the benefit of the doubt, and that decision haunts him. Edith, a courier of unimaginable surveillance and weapons capability, becomes a dangerous tool when wielded by someone with an agenda. The emotional core of the film is always Peter's relationships. His friendship with Ned is cute and sincere. Ned's loyalty and nerdy firewall provide levity and grounding. MJ, who is often the stoic outside observer, softens and reveals more. Their chemistry is a highlight. Awkward confessions, comfortable silences, and the very human embarrassment of teenage romance played against world-ending stakes. Aunt May, the moral anchor back home, represents the life Peter yearns for. Ordinary, kind, and anchored in community. She's the person who reminds Peter that being a hero isn't about applause, it's about choosing people over prestige. That contrast fuels Peter's choices in the big final act. The climax is set in London, an iconic showdown on iconic bridges and skyscrapers. Beck unleashes a hollow army and uses drone swarms to craft impossible illusions, giant beasts, meteor showers, in scenes pulled straight from fantasy.
He tries to lure Peter into a corner where the cameras will capture him unmasked, humiliate him, and dismantle his life publicly. Peter fights back with everything he has: street smarts, webs, quick thinking, and a measure of humility he finally learns. He doesn't try to be a Tony Stark knockoff. He's Peter Parker, a kid who trusts people, makes mistakes, and fixes them. With help from Ned and some hasty improvisation, Peter exposes the drones and the holograms as mechanical, non-supernatural tech. The veil lifts, and the truth about Beck's charade comes out in a spectacular, gritty reveal. Beck's end is theatrical and tragic. He's exposed as a fraud, a manipulative schemer who wanted to be lauded as a hero at any cost. He dies amid the rubble of his own illusions, consumed by the very spectacle he engineered. But his final act reserves a poisonous sting. He leaves behind doctored footage and a manipulated narrative that frames Peter as a liar, and worse, reveals his identity to the world. In a cruel twist, the one private thing Peter tried to protect, who he is when the mask comes off, becomes public. The film's final beats shift from action to consequence. Peter's world collapses in a way he's never had to reckon with. The media, the public, and even his own loved ones face a new reality where Spider-Man and Peter Parker are one and the same. The fallout is messy and immediate. There's the practical danger of being unmasked, and then there's the emotional fallout of losing.
Pragmatically, with containment in mind. There's a moment of bitter irony when Peter wanted normalcy and finally took a step toward it, only to have the door slammed open for everyone. The film closes on that rupture. The spectacle is over, but the consequences have only begun. The last images are intimate and devastating. Peter's face on every screen, Aunt May's heartbreak, MJ and Ned caught in the crossfire of public scrutiny. Throughout the movie, there's a tonal balance between teen comedy and superhero melodrama. The filmmakers lean into Peter's youth to create genuinely funny moments. Ned's pestering, Flash's clueless bravado, and Peter's awkward attempts at flirting. But the stakes remain real. The humor keeps the film from going too grim, and the heart keeps it from becoming shallow. Peter's arc is a classic coming-of-age story updated for the superhero era. He learns that heroism isn't a badge you earn at 25 or inherit from a mentor. It's the quiet decisions you make when nobody's applauding. If there's a takeaway beyond spectacle, it's that legacy is complicated. Tony Stark meant to pass a torch to Peter, but that torch came with burdens.